Hello, friends and fellow seekers. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice Podcast. My name is Elle, and I return to speak on some spiritual philosophy and the Law of One and my life experience on the matter. So today I have something exciting that I've been wanting to communicate for a long time, and I haven't just had the opportunity to do it. And the past week, it has come into my mind a number of times, and so here I am, and I'm going to share it. And mostly, it is actually born from a dream, I suppose, this idea that I'm going to share with you. And most of it is going to be about not worrying, why you shouldn't worry so much, and also some reasons to relax. Why can we relax in this moment? Why should we maybe not be overly concerned with every single detail? So we're going to talk about worry, hysteria, letting go, the best way to be of service to others, unity and infinity, and things about this nature. So you can find links to all of this information for free on my website, theoneinfinitecreator.com, and I have links to LL Research Material, who provides all of us this for free. And I will start with a quote. Actually, you know what? I better just start with the dream because otherwise you're going to get too lost in what I'm trying to explain. So, if you have ever had this experience, I'm sure you probably have because I've actually had it a number of times in my dreams. And, of course, you don't remember all of your dreams, but that's okay. Sometimes there are just little flavors of the dream that seem to stick out a little more than others, which when you awaken allow you to sort of reflect upon those feelings and those ideas that were maybe communicated to you in the dream, which in my opinion is your unconscious trying to talk to your conscious mind in a way that speaks its language and in a way that kind of communicates feelings. So whenever we are sort of having dreams, we're sort of looking for the underlying tone of the whole dream if you're trying to get an idea of what's trying to be communicated to you from your unconscious self. So what I find myself doing in dreams, and I find it very comparable to my life in that when I have this dream, it seems to be that I'm sort of pushing a little too hard in life, and I'm maybe worrying a little bit too much about things that I maybe should be letting go of and just going with the flow. So the thing that happens in the dream is it can be a number of things. It usually has to do with when I'm trying to run somewhere, I'm trying to get somewhere quicker than maybe I would need to, might be the way of explaining it. And so what happens is I view it very, very particularly in my head. The last time it happened, I was running up a grass hill, and I was basically just going up the hill at a decent pace, but then I felt like, oh no, like I'm thinking about all these future things and all these scenarios in the dream which require me to get to the top of that hill fast as I can. I gotta push past everything. Everything is so hard. I got to go, go, go. And what happens? Well, every time I think that and I try to sort of run faster, there is this feeling of slowing down, actually. It in fact does sort of the opposite. It's like the harder that I try to push, in fact, the slower I go and the harder it is to move. Now, before I go into too much details about the psychological reasons of that, I would like to note for you more intellectual folks who are aware of dreams and spatial recognition that, like, say, when you're in a dream, it is my understanding that when you look at your hand, there's this spatial recognition going on with your brain, and although your hand is not physically there and you're trying to see it, it does kind of screw up your perception. So there is a possibility, I will admit, that as I am trying to run and using my legs, which aren't really there in the dream, that my attempt to manifest them actually sort of slows down the process. However, that is not really what I'm trying to communicate here. What I'm trying to communicate is more the metaphysical lesson of what I gain from that, which is that I'm sort of pushing too hard. I'm trying to go against the stream, let's say, with too much intensity, more than maybe is comfortable or maybe even healthy for me. Maybe I'm going so hard that it's stressing myself to the point that I'm only looking at the ideal, at the end goal, when in reality the lesson is in the moment. The lesson is here. If I just sort of measure myself between where I am and where I want to be, there's a lot of anxiety between where I want to be and where I am. However, if I look at where I am right now and the person that I am today compared to maybe how I was before in my past, I'm, very grateful maybe for the person that I am today. So I feel that this, I can give you a lot of different metaphors. I sometimes kayak. So if you're kayaking and you're kayaking against the stream, you're going to give you the same idea here. You can kayak as fast as you want and put a whole bunch of effort and intensity into your paddling, and you may go a little bit faster for a little bit of time, but what's going to happen? You're going to tire yourself out. And what happens when you tire yourself out? You're going to need a break. And when you need a break and you stop to rest, the flow that you're trying to sort of go against, which I'm not trying to say to go against the flow, it's just for my metaphor, but you're trying to go upstream, right? So if you're going slow and steady, you have a nice slow and steady, it's like walking. You can technically walk forever, but you can't necessarily sprint forever. And so, if you're trying to paddle really fast and then you have to take a break, well, you stop and then the river starts taking you back. In fact, you start gaining opposite momentum of the direction that you're trying to go. And by the time that you are maybe healthy again and re-energized to start moving, well, you've already moved back almost to where you've begun. And so how did this stress really help you? How did this anxiety to push yourself really hard to get there faster, did it really do anything? Or did it actually create like a stumbling block where you are now almost just where you started again, and now you get to start over again a little more tired than you were before, and so now you're sort of forced to go at an easier pace, at a slower pace. So, as you can see, this is the nature of my dream. If I give you a little bit more, it got so intense with me running up the grass hill that I recall as I was trying to run, it was like my body was almost being pulled into the ground, and I'm trying to get up this hill, and I'm even using my hands on my knees. I'm like grabbing the grass and pulling myself forward, and it was just so stressful and hard on my mind, and so much so that I basically like woke up from the dream at that point. But as it is with dreams, they're not just completely random. There's usually stuff going on there, trying to basically your unconscious self trying to teach the conscious self a lesson or two. And so the lesson that I gather from that is that, yeah, I sometimes need to just relax. I need to go with the flow. I need to not worry so much about the future. Like, I know that I have good intentions and my intentions are set in the direction to serve others and to take care of myself. There's no difference between service to others, service to self, but I do wish to serve others. And so, what more can I do, right? Like, what more can I do? I can push and try to save the world and try to save these people and myself to certain degrees. And that is all fine and well. But if I do it with a sense of sort of hysteria and anxiety and worry and too much focus on the details of the day instead of just the love in the moment, it's easy to get confused and distorted and pushed aside, and starting over again in your where you already sort of were before. So I want to read you a couple of quotes now. The final quotes that I'm going to read you are definitely more, philosophical and just sort of almost self-explanatory. But this first one, I'm going to need to give you a tiny bit of background because it's a little bit of a complex situation that they're questioning about, but it goes really along with what I'm trying to explain to you about letting go of the fear and just living for the love in the moment. And when you do that, you can, weirdly enough, it's like I was talking to somebody the other day about thoughts and meditation, and the more thoughts that you have, they don't necessarily come from infinity. Like they do. Everything is the creator, but thoughts cannot contain infinity. Thoughts cannot contain the creator, but silence can. Silence is infinity, and silence is basically resonant with all things. And so there's not necessarily a lot of trying or doing, weirdly enough, paradoxically enough. And, Ra mentions in every single one of their sort of transmissions that, we leave you in the power and the peace of the one infinite creator. And I don't believe that they chose those two terms lightly. Power and peace. There is peace and power and peace in the one infinite creator. It doesn't necessarily always need defending, because the creator is truth and truth will prevail, because that is all there is in the universe. So all right, so I'm going to lay you down some groundwork for this here quote. So this is from the Law of One, the raw material, and this is from session 96.2, and this is going to be specifically how they mention about hysteria and fear, and how the instrument, Carla, who is channeling this material, she, because they're attempting to serve with some form of purity, she then gets greeted by a service to self entity who wishes to serve her in a service to self way, which is a fancy way of saying that wishes to sort of take her out of the equation and stop her service to self behaviors and her service here. And so what happens is that throughout the channeling, she's attacked metaphysically, you may say, and the metaphysical attack can then lead to a physical manifestation of that attack, depending on the response of the channeler, of Carla. And so with this one, basically she was being attacked, and it does mention here that if she was a more hysterical person, in other words, she was worried and she freaked out at what was happening to her, it actually would have resulted in the end of her life. But because she sort of relaxed and tried to put her trust in the creator, in fact, this is what was her protection. Okay, so in 96.2, Ra states, there was an opening quite rare for this mind-body-spirit complex, and into this opening, the one which greets you moved and performed that what may be considered to be the most potent of its purely magical manifestations to this present nexus, as you know time. It is well that this instrument is not distorted towards what you may call hysteria, for the potential of this working was such that, had the instrument allowed fear to become greater than the will to persevere when it could not breathe, each attempt at respiration would have been even more nearly impossible until the suffocation occurred which was desired by the one which greets you in its own way. Thus, the entity would have passed from this incarnation. End of quote. So, right, they basically, if I'm just giving you a more down-to-earth thing, what they just said, basically this negative entity sort of metaphysically attacked her and made her breathing instrument quit breathing. And so it was basically like, the more that she would freak out and try to breathe, the more that would actually reinforce the non-breathing. And so, what it says here, it says, it is well that this instrument is not distorted towards what you may call hysteria, for the potential of this working was such that had the instrument allowed fear to become greater than the will to persevere when it could not breathe, each attempt at respiration would have been even more nearly impossible until the suffocation occurred. So, like I was mentioning, you try to, I guess, sort of worry and you try to fight the fear with fear. Well, at least sort of like putting your smaller self in the way that, like, oh my God, what is going on? When the reality is, oh my God, okay, wait, oh my God, the one infinite creator, the moment, I have trust in this moment, all is well. Like, I could leave this physical body and still all would be well. Like, I know that's easier said than done, but that is sort of the attitude which I suppose sort of gets you into this idea of protection for the self, which is an extreme love for the self and for the other self who is attempting to sort of attack her. Now, in another session, this same entity who is attempting to attack Carla, this is basically a quote which talks about the same sort of thing. So I'll just read the quote and you'll get it. It says here, 67.2, it is fortunate for the ongoing vitality of this contact that the instrument is a strong-willed entity with little tendency towards the distortion called among your people's hysteria, since the dizzying effects of this attack have been constant and at times disruptive for several of your diurnal periods, means days basically. Continuing on. However, this particular entity is adapting well to the situation without undue distortions towards fear. Thus, the psychic attack is not successful, but does have some draining influence upon the instrument. End of quote. So I'm not wanting to make this whole podcast about magical defense, as that was not my intention with making this podcast. It's more about how choosing fear over love. But I should mention that I'm not going to pull a quote for you here, but basically in the face of an attack of a negative entity, which I should note is only going to happen if you are strongly polarized in the sort of service to others path. You kind of get tests from the service to self path who wish to offer you their path instead. But basically protection that they say is the highest is to send love for the sender of the greeting, the sender of the attack, if you will. Send honest love to them, and that is your honest protection. Like I said before, it's easier said than done. You really do have to do the shadow work to find that deep, unconditional, compassionate love within you that sees all entities as part of yourself, so that you can really channel that direct love. As you don't do it for protection either. You just do it because you know it's right. And within doing what's right and standing in truth, it is like you're a strong light, and you are standing. It's like a light in front of a shadow. The shadow has nothing to do but vacate. All right, so continuing on, I have a few more quotes lined up for you. So in 80.3, they state here, in the eyes of fear, how to choose love. So they state in 80.3, however, the instrument has become more mentally and spiritually able to greet this entity with love, thereby reducing the element of fear, which is an element that the entity counts as a great weapon in the attempt to cause cessation in any degree of the raw contact. End of quote. So once again, I guess we are talking about magical defense. I didn't mean to, but here we are. So yeah, once again, negative entities feast upon fear. And so if you fear that this entity is attacking you, and then sort of you open up the opportunity for it, it is the way it is. Your mind contains all things. And so it is your attitude about those things that matter. So we're now going to go into some more about not worrying. So why should you not worry? Why should you relax a little bit more? Well, my friends, I have a few things to run by you about unity and how we are one and all that woo-woo stuff, but it's going to give you hopefully a sort of intellectual angle at understanding this, so that your heart can better accept these things and work with these energies. At least that's how it works for me with this material. So, in session 62.26, they state, the love and devotion of this group misses nothing. Be at peace. There is some toll for this work. This instrument embraces this, or we could not speak. Rest then in that peace and love, and do as you will, as you wish, as you feel. Let there be an end to worry when this is accomplished. The great healer of distortions is love. End of quote. So, like they state here, the great healer of distortions is love, not worry, anxiety, and concern, and fear. It's about the love, of course. And so then you're gonna, sometimes, you get these people who the illusion of separation is strong in them. And don't get me wrong, it is strong within myself, and I'm sure within you too. So much so that even some of these concepts you may understand and think that they make sense, but to what degree that you've really accepted them deep, deep within your heart, sometimes we need a little bit more to maybe get us there. And that usually comes through personal experience, but a good quote, good words can change the heart, is what I've heard before. So in session 1313, I wanted you to understand how there is no separation and infinity contains all. So it says here, in 1313, Ra states, it shall be understood that any portion, no matter how small, of any density or illusory pattern contains, as in an holographic picture, the one creator which is infinity. Thus all begins and ends in mystery. End of quote. So once again, you may think you know what needs to be done, but you don't necessarily. The creator has this. Like, you have your free will to do what you will, but, thy will be done. There is a sort of a plan, a greater plan, and within this plan it does encompass our free will. However, the beginning and the end is mystery. The creator is born from mystery, and the ending seemingly is mysterious as well. And so you don't necessarily know. And, another quote, which I don't have right in front of me, but it's from my brain, is basically, this is not a density of understanding. You must accept within yourself that to basically move on from this density, you must understand that you do not understand. And to me, that is another way of saying you can't just use logic. Understanding is sort of a logic thing, if you will. And so understanding is not of this density. It's, to me, that is sort of another way of stating that you're not always going to make sense of things, but you can understand things like with your heart, right? It's like your heart is sort of beyond the logical understanding. And so if you make the choice to serve others or serve the self, and you've sort of moved on from the third density lessons into the fourth density lessons, those are the lessons of the heart and of deep understanding, where the veil is pulled back and you get to have deep understanding as to why. But right now, here in the third density, we are more behind that veil. We don't know things, and therefore to say that we do know is, in my opinion, folly. And therefore this is a bit of a faith building exercise this lifetime, and that we have to step away from that logic and enter the heart and state like, I do not know, thy will be done. May I attempt to do the will of the Creator as best as it is known to me. What more can I do? And with that, I would like you to know that there is a best way to serve, and it is unique to you. But before we go into the best way to serve, I want you to know that, first of all, it's impossible not to serve. A lot of people think, well, what is my service? And your service may change and develop over time and become more advanced or whatever. But you need to know that no matter what you do, you are serving already. Because why? Because everything is the Creator. It is impossible not to serve. If everything is the Creator, then whether you're serving yourself or you're serving an other self, all there is just a bunch of selves running around, or the illusion of the material of the Creator, such as the physical things in front of you. They are also the Creator. So there's only Creator interacting with Creator, and therefore it is impossible not to serve the Creator. So then you may want to go a little further and state, well, what is the best way to serve? How can I relax from my worry? Because a lot of people are worried about, well, I want to serve well. I want to do well. I want to do my best. I don't want to just sort of, just go by the wayside and dilly-dally along. I want to put in a good effort, a good attempt, and, good for you for wanting to do that. But you just have to have a good balance of, instead of trying to run and sprint to the finish line, a slow walk, a slow jog, if you will. But then reminding yourself here that there is no necessarily best way to serve. So in session 1730, they state here, the best way of service to others is the constant attempt to seek to share the love of the Creator as it is known to the inner self. This involves self-knowledge and the ability to open the self to other self without hesitation. This involves, shall we say, radiating that which is the essence or the heart of the mind-body-spirit complex. Speaking to the intention of your question, the best way for each seeker in third density to be of service to others is unique to that mind-body-spirit complex. This means that the mind-body-spirit complex must then seek within itself the intelligence of its own discernment as to the way it may best serve other selves. This will be different for each. There is no best. There is no generalization. Nothing is known. End of quote. So, like I just said, you are going to have to figure it out yourself, but just remind yourself that, service doesn't have to be big or small. It can be an infinity of things, and all that really matters is your intent. Is your intent set to serve? Well, the opportunities will come, my friends. They may come fast, they may come slow, but trust me, if you set your intention to serve, the matrix of life will bring those opportunities to you, probably more abundantly than you may even know, and you'll be like, oh, what have I got myself into? Well, there's the nature of your free will. So, I already mentioned this quote, but I just wanted to reiterate it now after I've sort of done this podcast to you, how Ra ends all of their talks with these questioners with this. They state, all is well. We leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. I remind myself over and over and over again in the power and peace. I sit here in silence, in meditation, when I'm frustrated, when I want to get back at others, when I am thinking how evil the world is and how I'm a victim of certain things and how the truth isn't necessarily prevailing on earth, and with my friends and family, and lies and distortions seem to be the flavor of the day. But I know that within the silence of love and the silence well, not even the silence of truth. There's no silence of truth, but in the silence of love and in the power of love and in the power of truth and intention and seeking to do well and seeking to serve, I know there is power and there is peace within that. And it doesn't require me so much to fight everybody, to defend all of my opinions, to defend my perceptions. I can only be that which I seek to see in the world, and trust me, the more I want to see in the world, the more that I have to live up to that being that I wish to be. And I try not to hold a bunch of worry and anxiety between where I want to be and where I am now. It is a really important thing that we are working with acceptance instead of control. And so you want to set your will in the intention to serve and to serve others and have a good idea, a good plan of where you want to go, but have some ease to it, have some flow to it, go with it and see where things take you. And like somebody I like to listen to who says that if you speak the truth, whatever happens may happen, but you'll know that what happens is good. Because when you speak the truth will create good. Or even if it doesn't seem to be good, right? Sometimes there's a little bit of distortion before being led to the goodness. But another quote from Ra, which I don't have right in front of me either, but from my head, which says basically, often to heal distortion, one must distort themselves more. Like basically to see the folly of your distortion within yourself, you sometimes need to really go down the road of distortion before you realize, oopsie, shouldn't have done that. And therefore, right, there's no mistakes either. Like there are surprises. And so when you do screw up and you make a mistake, once again, it's not necessarily need to worry. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be holding yourself responsible for what happened. Like you can do what you can to apologize and to make amends and et cetera, et cetera. But in the end, there still is just, you don't know how this life is. You don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know where everything's leading. The Creator is mystery, is mysterious, and therefore, what do you know to do except just to share the love of the Creator as it is known to yourself, and that is unique to you, and therefore I shall not tell you what to do. You are going to have to figure it out, and that is the beauty of this life. It's also a little bit of the scary part, but I like to think that if you are aware of these things, it can help you alleviate your concerns. It can help take that logical mind, which wants to be overactive, and you can say, hey, buddy, calm the heck down. You don't run this place. I run this place. And I includes me, my mind, and my heart. I'm a mind, body, spirit complex, not just a mind complex. So mind, you like to really control things, but the heart is important here. And so put the worries aside, put the concerns aside, seek the power and peace of the one infinite Creator. Try to do your best. What more can you do, my friends? So this seems like a nice time to wrap it up. It happens to be almost 11:11 on my cell phone. 11:10. Dang, that synchronicity ain't even matching up. How dare it? But all is well. All is perfect. And if you guys if you appreciated this podcast, I would appreciate if you give it a like. That's how I kind of know that you appreciated the stories and the topics. And you can leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about it. Tell me some future things you want to talk about. Give me some ideas you'd like to run by. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, end it as I usually do, that if you find value in what I do, I would very much appreciate it if you jumped on my Patreon or shot me a one-time PayPal if you have the abundance to share. I seek to offer all of this information for free. I don't want to put it behind any kind of paywall. So thank you to everybody who is already on the Patreon, and it allows me to do this in a more timely basis and in a way which is, in my opinion, keeps it more pure. Like, I know it would be optimal purity to have no money involved with this at all, and I had done that for 6-7 years, but then I'm finding that why should I need to put this separation between the energy, the money, and sort of my skills of what I consider my later years of learning about myself, of communication. And so yeah, if you find value in this, I really appreciate you, and thank you for joining, and thank you guys. I love you guys all so much. Thank you for listening. I just hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Take care.